The channeled message about a spiritual gift that you have coming online, especially if you have been excited about getting into Akashic record work or supporting people with past lives or learning about their cosmic history. These are insights that I pulled through from a client session, and she gave me permission to share in case it supports you on your journey. So you're going to want to save this video so you can come back to it in the future. And I am going to be saying this over you as though it is your own reading, so that way it goes in your subconscious at a more expansive level. I'm also going to be reading from my notes, so stay on track. So when I went to your energy field, I said, hello, I'm so excited to meet with you today, talking to your energy body. I said, we can go in any direction that you desire. So really focusing on, whatever's most prominent for you right now. However, when I said we can focus on any direction, in movies when everything slows down, almost like the Flash from DC Comics, I said we can go in any direction and kind of tailed off. And this is when I saw a tornado. Okay, this is symbolic, but a tornado, how it's really big at the top and it funnels down really teeny tiny? That's how you were feeling in your chest, around your heart chakra, kind of like what it has to do with our soul mission and why we're here during this incarnation. You said, whoa, I actually need you to narrow it down, okay? Because I feel like I'm getting pulled in all of these different directions and I don't have clarity and everything is just too open-ended. I need specific directions of what I need to be doing and focusing on. Then you started to feel a lot of pressure in your eyes. You said, I feel like I'm scanning, always scanning, like optimization. How can we do this the best possible way? Which sometimes leads to decision paralysis. If you have ever seen the Flintstones cartoon, with Betty Rubble as Fred's wife, she has a dress on. Now, obviously, if you're a male listening to this, just imagine you're a cave person. Okay, but I saw you running around frantically. I said, hey, what are you doing? You said, it's time for innovation. That makes sense with, cave persons to who we are today as more of an advanced society. Sometimes signaling, but more advanced society. I say, hey, it's time to make some quantum leaps as a collective. It's okay. Do you mean innovation outside of you or innovation within you? Because outside of us is more systems, but within is more consciousness. This is where you said there's a missing link. And what you meant was in our ancestral DNA. So you and I are starting to look at these DNA strands, okay, of the collective. And you said, will you come with me? I said, yeah, I'm here. I'm coming on the journey. And basically you wanted another pair of eyes to look at what's going on. So as we're looking at the strands, there's just so much information that was coming through because different strands do different things. So this is actually a psychic pro tip I'm about to give you. When you have an overwhelming amount of information when you're doing channeling, you can ask yourself, how can I make this easier on me to perceive? And what I suggested was, let's have a transcript, okay, something that we can read all the different strands and what they do, almost like a doctor would be looking at a patient chart. That's narrowing down so we can see with more precisity. You and I then had geneticist lab coats on. That's where your spiritual gift is based within, being a geneticist. Your higher self said that you help people turn on their star code DNA strand, their star code DNA strand. It's a part of our dormant DNA, and I'm going to give you a definition of that. Inactive genetic material that is not currently being expressed. So for an example, back in the day when we were into more shamanic practices, like we could see with maybe persons who are Native American or indigenous persons, they have their star codes turned on because they're able to really connect into the astrals and the ethers and through the veil a lot more than people of today. Okay, so there's a lot of people in the collective that this has, I wouldn't say turned off necessarily, but again, kind of laying dormant because we've been disconnected from those sides of ourselves. I asked, well, how would we turn this on and what is the functionality? And I said, let's do a test run together since we're in the lab. And so you and I put a call out into the ethers, and we asked if there was any souls that wanted to come forward for us to practice with them. So a being, like a person, soul, their higher self, came forward. I said, I want you to look at their anatomy, almost like you would be in science class, you know, where you can see somebody's bones, or you can see all their muscles and their blood vessels and things of that nature. I want you to try and identify where that star code DNA strand is within them. So our DNA is located in the nucleus within most of our cells. Then all of a sudden, we saw all of these images flashing by our eyes, like super fast. We couldn't really see what they were, but we knew that they were memories. And it would almost be like if you had a photo album, you know, it has all the pictures in the different slots, but instead of looking at them in a way that your brain can process, you'd be flipping through all the pages really quickly, and it was causing a lot of disorientation. So, okay, I see what's going on here. With you having the ability to read other people's Akashic records and give them information about different incarnations, if you will, different time periods that are outside of the confines of our time and physics here on this 3D plane, if we give people too much information, sometimes that can send them into a dark night of the soul. It can have them feeling disassociated from themselves. It can send them into psychosis, because what is happening is it's going against too many of their known truths and the paradigms that they are living in. And once you give them this information, it starts to break all of those things down and causes a lot of disruptions in their spirit and in their human mental scape. Higher self said some energy healers can have a underlying fear in your subconscious, in your psyche. Okay, maybe even something you're not consciously aware of right now, can have an underlying fear of helping people navigate their records because they've seen this happen before. Maybe you haven't directly been the reason for somebody like going into a situation like that, but you've seen it in this incarnation, like maybe on social media or somebody talking about it, or in other incarnations, and now we're having a little bit of a nervousness about stepping up into this leadership role because we don't want something like that to happen. Now, I know that sounds very spooky, scary, and you're like, oh, but I'm going to explain how that's not you. That's not part of your soul map and why. So you work on structures, formulations, and plans. Like, you're very method based. I said, I want to show you something. So I took us up to all these computer screens, and I turned one of them on, kind of like a TV remote. I said, we are going to watch you giving someone a reading from the future. And so a version of you that's, you know, a little bit further out, that is energetically reading somebody's aura to give them information from their Akasha field. I said, when you are expanding someone's awareness, it doesn't always have to be past lives either. Like, that's one way to do it, but it could be just information about themselves, like behavioral patterns, trauma, why they are the way that they are. Sometimes we need to be giving people that information on a scale. When you are expanding someone's awareness, you are taking into account what they are able to receive without creating major disturbances in their spirit. And a great way to do this is ask, how is this information helping them on this 3D plane? If you know me, I will talk about past lives, but I do it in a way that is going through the person's human mind, or the ego, if you will, so that way it's not too intangible and that information is filtered through. How can I apply this in a way that is beneficial for this now experience? That way it doesn't create disassociations and detachments. And I could have a session with somebody where we really need to talk more about 3D things, and so that's what comes through. And then I'll have sessions with people where they're very grounded and centered within themselves, and they like being here on earth, even with like the trials and tribulations. and we can get real cosmic with it. Okay, where we're talking about just all of these different planetary systems and dimensions that are outside of this time in physics, but it's an internal structure system that you have when you're doing scans of what is this person ready to hear. This is also why I do pre-channeling before my sessions with clients. Okay, you don't have to do that. I recommend that to all of my students because we're going to go on a little tangent here. I have intake forms. So I ask questions like, hey, what are the challenges that you're experiencing? What business, life, or spiritual skills do you want to work on? What are your short and long-term goals? I can tell very quickly from that intake form where that person is at in life. So how the session is going to go based off the language that they're using and the energetics that they're presenting. And then on top of that, I do pre-channeling where I connect with their higher self, their different incarnations, their inner children. Like I sit down for like 20 minutes beforehand and go into a meditative state and pull through what I need to, because their higher self will let me know. I'll say, oh, this person needs to focus more on 3D things. This person's like way up in the esoterics or maybe somewhere in the middle. But I am also very mindful about these things, just like you are. Okay, that's why we have structures and formulas and methods in place to have those kind of safety parameters to help us as the practitioner feel more grounded and centered in our own gifts. I told your energy body, you already have systems in place. Okay, your gift does not have to work like a light switch. Okay, so what's been running back here in the background, because on multi-dimensional levels, you know about this ability already. But you're thinking if you turn somebody's star code DNA on, it's either on or off. I said, that's one way. Or we can switch out that mechanism and make it a dial. You know how you can kind of turn the lights up and turn them down if need be. So some people are ready to have their consciousness expanded at 5%. And some people are ready for 50%. But if you have that dial in place, now you as the healer and the practitioner have a little bit more control over what is being filtered through. And I'll be honest with you, because you have structures like this, when I'm talking to somebody, if they're not ready for a bit of information, it's not going to come out of me anyway. Like there have been multitudes of times where I have wanted to say something and it literally will just not vocalize. Like it will not come out of my system because that person's not ready and their higher self is like, no. And then I asked your energy body, well, how are you feeling now? And they said, I'm still feeling a little bit nervous, but knowing I can work with it like a dial helps me feel more confident. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened with one of my clients. Okay, so we have a mentorship together. So we're meeting over a multitude of sessions. In our first session, we were really focused on helping her feel more confident in more of her 3D coaching styles of helping people with the next steps in their life, in their formulations of their plans with their human. The next session that we had together, we did this one. And so I was telling her, I said, this is the same thing with the dial. If I had given you all this information in the first session, we wouldn't have integrated that because we need to work on our human confidence first and then our multidimensional confidence. But that's also a representator about how we have these wisdom structures in place where you intuitively know, hey, everyone needs different information at different times. Now, these are some self-discovery questions that our higher self wants us to ask ourselves to help us feel more confident in this geneticist, star code, DNA strand, reawakening gift that we have. Okay, so this would be a good time to journal with yourself. So save the video so you can come back and get the questions. What feels exciting about sharing this gift? What part of yourself knows that you are already ready? What kind of experience do you want people to have in working with you or connecting with you? Like, how do you want them to feel? What do you want them to get out of it? What's one small way you can start preparing yourself to share this gift? Now, if you would like some extra support in developing this ability, I have an Akashic Record course that you can get in my bio. It says how to read the Akashic Records. And the way that I've set it up is to first help you as a human practitioner feel more confident in your 3D abilities and give you a lot of guides and structures. And then deeper into the course, we start getting more into the multi-dimensional ether astral work. So it's going to help you level up as a practitioner. I'm going to give you a special code so you can get half off from watching this video, because I want you to thrive and succeed. Okay, so you get half off with the promo code HARMONY, capital H, HARMONY. And I would love to hear in the comments if any of the symbolism was a synchronicity for you. So the tornado that we were feeling in our chest, being a cave person ready for innovation, the photo album where we're seeing all of them flash before our eyes, or being a geneticist and being interested in supporting people with their DNA strands, their star code DNA. And as always, I am wishing you and your inner children an absolutely magical day.